Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. March of the Machine gave us a new type of card with its battles, which represented various planes around the multiverse fighting back against the invading armies of New Phyrexia. While we've covered the story of this set and the aftermath which followed it, I wanted to circle back and take a closer look at the battles specifically, especially now that we know any of these locations could be connected to one another with an omenpath. Omenpaths are rips in the fabric of the multiverse itself, and they act as portals between planes, which anyone or anything can cross through. This is handy because a lot of planeswalkers have been desparked, so these omen paths will be the connective tissue of the game's stories for the foreseeable future. With that said, today we're looking at the first half of the 36 planes with battle cards done alphabetically. Why? To make it easier to find the one you want. And speaking of finding the one you want, check out my link for Into the AM to find the graphic tee you want. Promo code Magic Arcanum gets you 10% off site-wide, and that stacks with their bundle deals, which you can use to curate your own perfect clothing booster pack. Into the AM has a huge variety of graphic tees with designs that capture the same energy as your favorite characters and locations from Magic. Not only do they look great, they're made from premium materials and are the most comfortable shirts this side of the multiverse. Support the show by visiting our sponsor, Into the AM, using the link down below, and turn yourself into the best-dressed wizard who ever walked the plains. Alright, now let's take a look at some battles. We'll start with Alara, home to Ajani and Tezzeret. We've been here before, when it was split into 5 individual shards, each containing a color of mana and its 2 allies. Those shards were merged during an event called the Conflux, which gives the plane plenty of its own drama, so I think future visits will be pretty self-contained, though curious outsiders might stop by for a look around. Amonkhet suffered greatly during the Hour of Devastation, but people did survive and are now trying to rebuild the plane into something that can support life. Samut is already here, and Basri is another native, but we haven't seen him in years at this point. I could imagine Vivian showing up to help eventually. She's lost her own home plane and would be sympathetic to their situation. In the art for this invasion, we see Hazaret, who has a new Lazotep arm, working with the Locust God and the Scarab God to fight off the Phyrexians. This was an uneasy truce, I'm sure, but perhaps it means some aspect of their humanity remains and is growing in strength now that Nicol Bolas isn't around to influence them anymore. Arcavios is home to the School of Strixhaven and the game's newest planeswalker, Quintorius. Tasmina and Liliana are also associated with this plane now, though we're not sure if either of them has a spark at the moment. The school still has some work to do in rebuilding its campus, but I think our next visit here will focus on learning more about the surrounding landscape, which was largely unexplored on our first tour, even as it teased some interesting mysteries. As a source of magical knowledge, it might be fun to see other academically minded characters show up for classes. Maybe a student exchange program with Tolaria, or Orzhov bankers come to get a business degree, while Lorehold historians keep asking them invasive questions because they're ghosts. Asgol has only ever appeared on a plane chase card. It has no known planeswalkers or legendary creatures, just a smoking volcano and the ability to create zombies, which is why this battle flips into a red and black zombie elemental. This is effectively a blank slate, story-wise, but it seems like it would be hard to create a compelling world based around such a barren hellscape. Instead, we might see some dangerous creatures from here spill out into other more populated worlds. Belenon is another plane that has no known planeswalkers to call it home, and it has also only appeared on Planechase cards. However, we can tell from the art that the creatures here include animal people, with Loxodon, Rox, and Avon all represented, any of which could become interesting legendary creatures that bravely step through an omen path and find themselves making friends on Alara or New Capenna. Now at this point, some of you might be wondering what these Planechase cards I keep mentioning are, and basically they allow you to play a variant of Magic. All players have their regular deck, but also need a planar deck made up of at least 10 plane cards. The planes usually provide a static effect that affects everyone, and another ability that might be triggered with a chaos roll on the planar die. You can add all this to your commander game, for example, to introduce a bit of environmental storytelling, if you like. You can even find Planechase cards included in the March of the Machine pre-constructed commander decks, or ask your local game store if they have any of the original Planechase cards from 2009. Dominaria is perhaps the best known plane in the game. A huge number of planeswalkers call it home, and it has hosted more than one Phyrexian invasion. We already know Danitha is bearing the responsibility of leadership and guiding the recovery efforts, but there's probably more in store here. The Weatherlight, for example, kind of flew off at the end of the Dominaria United story, but with the Phyrexian oil rendered inert, the iconic skyship could return to us. It would be a perfect platform for telling new stories as it sails through the omen paths, bringing its crew to strange new worlds, exactly as it did for their ancestors. The invasion of Eldraine looks to have been one of the more damaging ones. We know the Kenriths are dead, and in the art of the battle card, we can see the once mighty Castle Locthwain repurposed by the Phyrexians. Will and Rowan have also lost their shared spark, and this will be one of the first planes we visit in the wake of the Aftermath. So it will probably set the story tone for a year or two to follow. I think the story here will be dark. The plane has suffered heavy losses, and not every fairy tale has a happy ending. So I am very interested to see what happens here, and I would love to hear your own predictions down in the comments. Urgamon is another plane that has only appeared in Planechase and has no known planeswalker natives with cards. However, it is technically one of the oldest named places in the game, thanks to appearing in a short story featured in the original Alpha rulebook. Aside from that, though, we don't have a lot to go on, and the battle card seems to have been designed mostly to support the red and green draft archetype, which was the color combination that cared the most about battles. Fleshing out a whole world here would be a tall order, again, but maybe Nissa and Chandra pass through on their way to Zendikar or something. I don't know. Fiora, however, is a pretty well-established setting with interesting characters vying for power, like Marchesa, who did an outstanding job bringing the plane's defenses to bear against the invading Phyrexians. The planeswalker Duretti might also show up here, since it is his home, but it remains to be seen if Fiora only gets to host conspiracy sets, or will ever get featured as a major expansion and somehow connect itself to the game's larger ongoing stories. Teo comes to us from Gobakon, a desert plain with 2 suns and harsh diamond storms, which make survival here difficult, just like on Amonkhet. And during the War of the Spark, Teo already acted as a sort of fish out of water when his spark ignited, and he wound up on Ravnica, where he was impressed by the indoor plumbing. I don't think we need to see another character from here follow Teo's arc of discovery, and I can't imagine someone would come here voluntarily, so I think it is unlikely we get a lot of story out of this one. Mom, can we get an insufferable desert plane? No, you have an insufferable desert plane at home. Anyway, Ikoria. Since Luca is dead, we don't have any living planeswalkers invested in this one, just a bunch of humans trying to retake Drannith and carve out an existence for themselves. Story-wise, the creatures here have mutated their own resistance to the Phyrexian oil, and the ozolith remains a supremely powerful magical artifact that needs further investigation, all of which reminds us life on this plane is constantly changing, though again, I don't know why anyone would want to come here. Now, I know you can't tell where an omenpath will take you, right? That's supposed to be part of the fun, but I don't think they necessarily close right behind you after you pass through them. So once you realize you're on a world full of giant monsters and there's no coffee shop anywhere, wouldn't you start looking for an exit? Maybe you'd end up on Innistrad and... okay, well, that would be worse than Ikoria. The vampires and zombies and spirits and werewolves make this a dangerous place to be, night or day, but at least you've got Sigarda to protect you. Edgar and Olivia are out there somewhere, and Emrakul is still locked up in the moon, but I'm most interested in seeing if there are any lingering effects from the surge of Halo that ended the invasion. Innistrad is dense with angels, and a boost to their power could alter the balance of the plane to the point where Sorin would have to get involved. Again, Ixalan is home to Huatli, and based on flavor text hidden in the Aftermath expansion, it sounds like she's lost her spark, but not her feelings for Saheeli, even if they are presently worlds apart. A small group of vampires helped Huatli defend the Sun Empire, but that was yet another uneasy truce, and I suspect our next visit to the plane will see the various factions once again racing to uncover treasures hidden deep within the namesake island. But will that adventure reveal the true fate of Jace and Vraska? They've both been missing since the end of March of the Machine, and Ixalan is where they found each other previously, so it's possible those lost caverns are holding treasure of a different sort. Kaladesh is home to Saheeli, who, as I said earlier, is desparked, but also Chandra, who is currently out exploring with Nissa. Chandra's mom, Pia, is also here and helping rebuild, while only slightly worrying about her daughter. I like this plane a lot, but most of the conflict with the consulate was resolved by Aether Revolt, and the artifact and energy themes are difficult to design cards around, so I think it'll be a while yet before we get another expansion set on Kaladesh. Kaldheim, however, will almost certainly become a major part of the story within the next few years. Tyvar wants to return the elves to power, and a regrown world tree might bring some stability to the omenpaths. There's a lot of conflict to explore, and plenty of interesting characters to tell us about the tale, one boast at a time. In fact, the only place that could rival these Skalds of Kaldheim right now is Kamigawa, where Tamio's influence guides Nashi, and the Emperor and Kaito figure out how they're going to repair the damage done to their home during the invasion. Demon spirits have returned, and while the people of the plane are no strangers to conflict, they lost many benevolent kami and even the sheltering branches of Beseiju during the Phyrexian attack, which could give the Oni a big edge in their own assault. Neon Dynasty was quite popular, so I expect we'll be back here before long. I just hope the plane doesn't lose too much of its newfound charm by the time we return. Karsus has only ever appeared on a single promotional plane chase card you could earn by playing in a store event like 13 years ago, so don't worry if you don't recognize this one. It's another vaguely defined plane with crystalline landscapes, and that gives it an interesting look, especially when it becomes a sort of mirror-plated elemental, but again, building this up to the point where it could host everything Magic needs for a compelling full set would be a tall order. I don't expect us to visit Karsus anytime soon. Kylem is the plane from Battlebond, which houses Valor's Reach, the arena where you can compete for fame and glory. It's a neat location within the lore of Magic, and the Kenrith twins did spend some time there before enrolling at Strixhaven, but it will likely remain a destination for supplementary products and probably won't ever be part of the larger ongoing story. And that is exactly half of the 36 battle cards, which will conclude this tour of the multiverse. It feels like we got some planes that were just filler tapped for March of the Machine, but plenty of others that offer intriguing possibilities in a multiverse still reeling from the aftermath. Eldraine and Ixalan are up next, and beyond that, I think we'll eventually see big things from Kamigawa, Innistrad, and Dominaria. It's just a matter of how they space it all out. From the 18 planes we just covered, which do you think holds the most potential for the game's narrative? Let me know down in the comments. Check out my link for Into the AM while you're there, and make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya!